So in history, how do we get rid of this wealth divide? Because I guess if you look at it, it went from labor in sort of the
Hmm.
mid 20th century. Now we're into the capital phase. How
Hmm.
do you get rid of it? Is it just absolutely destroying the value of assets and passing
Yeah.
it over to labor? Is that the only way?
I mean, there's two answers. The dark answer is Hemingway's answer. You get rid of social unrest by distracting the masses with inflation and pain and war. Wartime economies, good guys, bad guys, creating narratives to keep your mind off the failures of your own policymakers, the failures of your own leaders to put you in this much debt where you're this desperate. Hemingway lived through two world wars. He was not an economist. He wasn't a central banker. Certainly wasn't a politician, and he certainly wasn't perfect, but he was blunt. And I don't want to see Hemingway be right, but he is already right. We do have permanent war, and we do have permanent ruin, and we do have inflation right now. The other way to distract the masses is tribalism, arguing about religion, arguing about sexuality, arguing about left versus right, arguing about immigration. Again, all valid things to discuss, but they distract us from the fact that our income is one third of our debt as a country. In a family, that would create social unrest. In a family, that would create marital unrest. That would create separations and divorces. If your husband's a gambler addict and you don't have enough money to put your kids through school or feed them in the week, that's going to break the family. Well, rather than focus on that reality as a country, we're distracting the country with all kinds of identity politics and polarizing politics. Can it be solved without pitchforks? Yes, I hope so. History has shown that usually it's violent and usually it's ugly and usually it's political or a combination of all those things. Pollyanishly, idealistically, hopefully, maybe through a fair democratic process, we elect more intelligent people who understand basic economics, who are not afraid to admit that we need austerity, not more mouse clicked money, not more centralization. Like a family, you would talk about, honey, we need to tighten our belt. We need to spend less. We need to suffer a little, take less vacations. As a country, we need to trust our leadership to believe that. I think it's very hard for a politician to talk that honestly. Javier Milei has done that in Argentina. It's interesting. He's talked bluntly that we're broke, Peronism failed, we're screwed, we got to do something differently here. Not many Western politicians can do that. And frankly, not many Western voters are willing to hear that kind of negativity. They don't want to hear that either. They want someone to save them. So it's not just the fault of politicians, it's the fault of voters. But voters don't trust their politicians left or right the way they used to. The world doesn't trust our dollar the way they used to. I think Americans that I can speak for are willing to make tremendous sacrifices. That Kennedy quote, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. I think Americans throughout history have shown that they're very brave and they're very willing to buckle down when they believe in their government, when they believe in their fellow citizens, when they believe in their country. Even after a civil war, America was capable of doing great things. The problem today, politically and financially, is our country is completely spiraling into tribalism and factionalism, and it's a fractured society. It's a have and have not society, which is based on Fed policy and this rigged to fail system that I wrote about years ago. These are not dramatic things. Anyone walking around America, I've never seen it more divided, the divided states of America. You're practically looking at succession in places like Florida or Texas or Tennessee. It's not an exaggeration. People are picking their camps, red versus blue. And then there's all these other things that divide us. So I hope that there's some way that we can get past the sensationalism that's coming from our government, from our media, and come together and have a common vision of what America can be or what Europe can be or what England can be. That seems kind of idealistic right now. And I think it's harder to be idealistic when there's financial stress. When there's financial stress, it's very hard. As I've heard it said before, when you stand out in the rain long enough, you'll get in anybody's car. When you've got nothing to lose, you'll try anything. And a lot of citizens throughout the world that I've traveled through in the last year have no place else to go. They don't believe, and they'll get in anyone's car. They'll believe anything, and they're angry and they don't trust. So again, we're getting off of financial issues, but politics affect markets, markets affect politics, and that affects our experience not just in the markets or in our gold investments, but in our backyard. So you can't ignore these topics. I don't claim to be an expert on how to solve them all, but we have a lack of transparency about our debt, a lack of transparency about our foreign policy, a lack of transparency about our domestic policy, that everyone's just feeling like they don't know who to trust anymore.